to own it. Just wanted to take the time, learn all the things that I could about you. Now it's such a mess here. Oh, we are just stressed here. Used to be so easy with you.
Thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Sparkle.
Thank you for dressing like this.
Hey, I look sharp, you look sharp. Between the red and the black, you and I look like a high-end, high-roller room roulette table right now, you know, so
everyone's going to place their bets right now, right?
Place your bets, red or black. Most of the fellas, I think, they're going to bet with you. So, you know, can't blame them. But, yeah, so, you know, we're like the high rollers room at the Wynn, or, you know, at one of the nicer casinos. You know, we're not on the cheap end of the strip, you know.
We're the high-end ones. So
that's right.
You've been a busy man since the last time you've been in that seat.
Yeah. I just running my, you know, I have a local construction consulting business and, you know, all that kind of good stuff. And, of course, my partner with my YouTube channel, we're back at it. We're back at it like a crack addict, as we jokingly say. We've been doing shows again on the two YouTube channels we have, Mob True Crime and Mob and Organized Crime TV. Having some fun. There's a lot of material here lately. And Mike McAllister, my partner on the show, released a book, Catch 420.
How's he doing?
He's doing quite well.
And he lives in Vegas?
Yeah, he lives in Vegas.
I always try to reach out when he's like here, but I think he's just a very busy man.
Yeah. He's anxious to come on here. When next time he's in Fresno,
please hit me up. Yes, he is definitely always welcome. But yeah, then you traveled to LA and did some interviews. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I've been on Soft White Underbelly. I also went on Matt Cox True Crime, which is a channel out of Florida, but that was done remote. So down in Santa Monica area is where Soft White Underbelly is. Top secret location. Don't worry, Mark. I'm not going to disclose where it's at.
I'm going to get him to disclose it.
Yes, that's her goal today, is to get a lot of secrets out of me, right? But yeah, so went down there, had a good time with him, and I was referred by Mike Dowd, who he's an infamous figure from New York. He was a police officer who was part of a group of corrupt cops that thought it would be a good idea to, put their hands into the cocaine cookie jar for a while, and eventually Rudy Giuliani caught on to them, and so he did some prison time over that. Good guy though. He's a very charismatic individual, and he's on the straight and narrow now. So he referred me there, and it did quite well. We got almost 200,000 views so far.
That is impressive.
Which is, very good for... Mark told me that I was kind of the second best after Mike out of any of his guests. And I'm assuming he's not just telling me that for no reason. He doesn't like to have to do a ton of questions. He prefers to interview people who know their story and can articulate it and put it out there. And so I prepped in advance and did so, and so it was a good time, and it was really cool too, because in the comment section, people who actually knew me from back in the day, especially people who I hadn't talked to in years. Mind you, this is 2023 that I went on there, and or 2024, and people I hadn't talked to since my cannabis days. Went in there, it's like, yeah, hey man, I remember you. Nobody said I owed them money anymore, or anything like that. There were people that said, hey man, good job, and there were people from my past who didn't want to come and hit me up and said, we appreciate you doing this honestly, and I didn't overhype it. I didn't pretend to be somebody that's dodged a bunch of bullets in cars or whatever, and like an action movie kind of character and thing. But I told it right. And then of course I got wonderful haters too, people who didn't know me, who just teenagers that are trolls that write comments just to be pranksters.
That's
and
always
stuff.
fun.
And what's good is that's a sign that you're getting somewhere on YouTube and podcasting. If you don't have like about a 10% of just jokesters and clowns, you haven't made it. Yeah, you haven't made it. Yeah, you gotta come. You gotta get that right mix. But the overwhelming, the likes on there, it's in the 4,000 range, which is really good. and there's like 100 or less dislikes, that's a huge, really good ratio in there. And so it was a fun time. Mark is a very smart and a very likable individual, and very artistic. He's kind of like a surfer dude. He's an Italian guy with a surfer guy kind of, LA guy kind of thing. Yeah, I can vibe with that. So I used to have family down in Southern California. My family actually moved up there from Thousand Oaks and that area just before I was born. So
wow. Okay.
Yeah, so,
they did the reverse.
Yeah. They came,
because most people do go the other way. But
my dad and mom moved up just after they got married. They couldn't afford the same house that my grandparents had. We'll put it that way. Then again, my grandfather bought the home in Thousand Oaks back when land in Thousand Oaks was a lot cheaper.
Nice.
Yeah, so, he was in the military during the Korean War era. And my other grandfather was a aircraft designer for the U.S. military during the Second World War. And my grandfather on my dad's side worked at the Hughes Lab, which is, it's a Hughes weapon lab in Malibu. And so, he was a smart fella, and, I got some of those genes, and unfortunately for my family, I decided to use that to do some illicit things for a minute. But,
and just you can tell as brief as possible, our viewers, just a little recap on your history.
Yeah, so I basically, I went to Fresno High, and during my junior year, I kind of went from being what you could say is sort of the all-American boy to the almost all-American semi-bad boy. If you look at my high school yearbook that year, I'm literally right in the middle as a volleyball. I played numerous sports. Volleyball was one of them, and it's got this great shot of me spiking the ball, like right in the middle of the yearbook. If you're trying to be like a Chad, as these younger dudes would call them now, and, that's where you want to be in the yearbook, right in the middle, looking like you're ready to just smack, like I used to be able to jump and all that. But by the time the volleyball season was over, I had already realized that I was very good or effective, we'll say, at selling marijuana-type products. And I was selling bags already. And so by the end of the school year, my junior year, I'm in continuation. I had already been arrested, by then. I got to sit in juvenile hall for a minute and go from there. Real quick side note with the juvenile hall thing. I was celled up across from three of the most infamous lowlifes that was at that era. There was an infamous homicide that happened at Fashion Fair to a guy named Lukey. It was a major case back then, very tragic case. He was shot by three lowlifes who from the west side who went out to Fashion Fair, went to rob him, and they decided to pull the trigger. But I was celled up across from them with two cool dudes, actually. I got along with my cellmates pretty well. And I got to smack one, we got into a little back and forth one time, literally 2 hours after I got into the place. So I was able to leave saying, I got to smack one of the clowns that committed this heinous crime. So anyhow, I wasn't able to go back to school after that kind of stuff, and I went to continuation. And because the cannabis stuff went so well, it just kind of parlayed from there. It goes from local sales to selling higher level amounts, and ultimately I started getting connected with guys that were from south of the border. Where I grew up at Weston Clinton, there was already cartel guys in California from the Tijuana, that whole crew down there. And one of my friends that was one of the kind of a group of us that were all sales guys, he moved back to Michigan, and he became connected with the mob that was there, as well as Chaldeans, which, for the people who don't know, it's a Middle Eastern group. They're very similar to Armenians in many ways, and kind of guys that, quite frankly, they're probably tougher than the Italian mob, to be honest with you. But he got connected with those guys, and then they reached out to me and a few others from our old crew, and we're like, weed back there was like 3 to 4 times expensive than what it costs here. So you could make a good amount of money if you were buying pounds of weed from Mexico and shipping it back there. Huge markup, $300-400 a pound at the time for us here, and it's 4 times that on the wholesale level in Michigan. So you move, it's a 3-day trip. You move, say you buy 100 of them and you get the price break, you can get down to $200, $250 a piece. At 100 of them, that's about $20,000 to $25,000 that you cost you. Another, let's say, $2,000 to $4,000 in travel expenses and paying a courier. And then you go back there, though, if you're selling each one even for $2,000 or $1,500, it's a huge markup. There's there's a lot of money involved.
It must be so hard to be back in the street in aerial life.
Yeah, the thing about it too is it's like you get spoiled actually too. Like it's hard to go work a regular job after that kind of stuff. I got arrested though in February of 1994 after I was 18, as I was involved with local sales still, and I did trade weed for stolen stuff and other things. I just was a knucklehead, and I also involved myself with just being greedy. I'm not going to blame this kind of stuff. Oh, I was impoverished, or oh my God, something happened 100+ years ago to my people, and therefore I got to commit crime. I'm just being greedy. That's what most of the guys are. You want things, you don't want to have to pay for it. You want to make quick money. It's greed at the end of the day. And so I got arrested as an adult with my co-defendant at the time, who had been involved with sales too. And, while out on bail, I actually did a trafficking trip, which is a really stupid idea in retrospect. But it's how I thought at the time, greed again, driven by that. And but as a condition of probation, I either had to work or go to college. And this was like, in February of 1994, we're talking, I was arrested 3 weeks before the California 3 strikes law first kicked in. So when I was going back for continuance hearings, I was watching other guys' felony cases where the DA was hitting them with their first strike cases, the first strike cases in Fresno County, right? And I watched as the DA, guys who would have got, let's say, 10 years for what they were in the docket for, were now looking at 20 or more. And I watched like hardened criminals starting to damn near tear up when they realized what they're going to get, right? And, so luckily I was sentenced under the old regime at the time and was subject to that, so I got probation. But if I had done the same offense just 4 weeks later, I probably would have been sitting in jail selling weed there. I would have been selling weed in Corcoran, rather than on the street. So I got very lucky, as did my co-defendant. We both, signed plea deals, and we didn't snitch on the fellas that got away, and we didn't have to. I had to go to school as a part of my deal. Right. And I signed a deal that said that if I did not get a 3.0 or better, that I was going to be instantly arrested and
that's
shipped
a lot of
out.
pressure.
Oh yeah. When I went back to City College, right? I had to sign away my privacy rights too and give it to the court, to where the probation or the judge, they could just call, I want a progress report from him right now. And if at any point in the semester it was below 3.0, they were going to slap handcuffs on me, and I was going to get shipped out to Corcoran or Wasco. And that would have been my first, I
bet there's so many parents that wish they could do that to their children.
Oh, yeah. It did straighten me up on the academics. I had weekends where I stayed at home. I get invited to parties, and I'm like, I can't go to a party. I got to study for the test on Monday. Well, how come, bro? Just wait. Just do it the last minute. No, you don't understand. I have to get an A on this test, right? So it was good for me, though. It provided discipline, and that kind of stuff. And so it started the process of professionalizing me too, though.
And now you made a profession out of being a bad boy, essentially. Now you go to call the fellow past bad boys and interview them.
Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of today's crazy world is that it's, for years I tried to hide what I was doing. I would go get jobs after college, right? And I would be like, please don't freaking do a background check. Please don't. I had an excuse ready. For if they did find out stuff, right? And so you'd spend, about 15 to 20 years trying to hide everything you've ever done and throw it into a lockbox, so to speak. And but in today's world, especially after the pandemic, where all these guys start doing all these YouTube shows and podcasts, everybody's bored. Oh, let's start talking about old stuff, right? Old crime stuff. I was like, wow, and I just turned on my laptop and along with McCallie, and we just started talking about our old days, right? And we started getting noticed. So here we are. It's good though. I like it. It's been a good form of almost therapy in a way.
Did you write a book too, or just?
I'm in the process of it.
Okay, that's what I didn't think it came out. So what's this one about?
So Mike McAllister, he also went to Fresno High. This is Catch 420. In 2005, a mutual friend of mine and his, actually, let me take that back. He didn't even know the guy, and I barely had met the guy. The DEA linked us, as friends, right? who was in the high grade marijuana business, and he also was moving some Mexican weed too. Still, got in trouble, and he was the owner of Exclusive Sounds, which was a dish network and pager shop and car stereo shop, cell phone shop that was on Shaw Avenue, right? His name's Oscar, and he's been in the public eye, so I'll say his first name. He's starting to do podcasts too, just like the rest of us, right? He got busted, and the DEA, the FBI, and all these state agencies and the locals, right, had a major task force aimed at him and others. And McCallie was involved with growing in Mendocino, and he was moving a pretty decent amount of high grade of marijuana at the time. And ultimately, through Oscar, when the DEA started, looking into his records and his phone records, they start seeing this guy, and then this guy to this guy, this guy to this guy. So they had multiple phases of
it's a puzzle piece.
Yeah. It was called Operation Green Speaker, and which was named after his stereo shop. He got the DEA's Operation Green Speaker, and he gets busted. Others that we knew from Fresno High, Bullard, and a few of the other schools, guys that from my era, got nailed. And ultimately, that led to him and to others around me. And McCallie was arrested in Mendocino. He was tending to a pot field up there. And all of a sudden, the Black Hawk helicopter, one of those military choppers, right, from the Gulf War and from Iraq, right, comes swooped in.
Wow.
The DEA catapults down, and the feds.
Like a movie.
Oh yeah, total. And he of course he tried to run, and he gets down from the hill, and he actually had you got this like Rambo kind of thing. Everywhere you go, right, you see the darn chopper everywhere. I can't escape this thing, right? He actually had gotten away, but then he realized he didn't have his water. And for those of you who know California, you're so far from civilization up there. You're not going to run 100 miles to Eureka or to Willits or one of the other small towns up there without water. He had to go back up, and he had forgot his dog and stuff, and he ended up getting caught and arrested. Yada yada yada. Ultimately, he ends up he got put into the federal system, as did Oscar and a bunch of others. And so he wrote a book about it. And, I came extremely close to also being nabbed in that case. I was actually at a meetup, and this will be in my book, but I was in a meetup with one individual who ultimately became a DEA FBI snitch.
Wow.
and 2 others from Fresno High.
Wow.
Who had went to school with us. There was 4 of us at this meetup at the guy who became a snitch's house. And the reason why I left early was my then wife called, or she reached out to me and said she was feeling like she might be pregnant. And
so your child saved your life.
Yes. Yeah. It's crazy. It's in January, right, of 2005. And so I left early to get, I was going to get her ice cream, pregnant women. I want this. They have a whole list of, almost like a stoner, right, in terms of all the food they want to eat, right? Anyways, I put a bag that had, we'll just say, I won't say exactly, but a good amount of cash in there and stuff into the trunk. And just randomly, I get pulled over because I was speeding. I got pulled over by just a random speed cop, right? No. And, I'm like, oh, gosh, this is the worst luck, right? I had put it in the trunk. I get pulled over, and the cop then tells me, oh, by the way, your license is technically expired. I had paid it late or whatever, and the DMV hadn't processed it, whatever, right?
Shoot.
Your license, and back then you could get your car towed for those kinds of offenses. Today's California, they don't care. You could steal a car and you will be out of jail in 5 minutes, right? Geez. But so they towed, he's like, I'm gonna have to tow the vehicle, and I told the cop, look, this is, my old lady, she's pregnant, blah blah, probably her stuff, she had her clothes in the back. So I said, look, I don't want some tow truck guys going through my wife's personal stuff. Would you mind if I just put a bag of, fill up a bag of her clothes and stuff? And he basically was like, I don't see why not. He had my keys and my license, and he opened up the trunk, and he's writing the ticket. I'm like this, and my old theft days came in handy. I had some quick hands, right? So the second he turned his head for even like that, I threw a bunch of towels on top, right? And that was like just step 1 of escaping with it, right?
Wow, and the next you dodged a lot of bullets with that story.
The next thing I'm like, I told him that my cell phone wasn't getting a signal. And I was like, there's a payphone. This is near the AM/PM on, is it Grantland and Shaw kind of area? I forget which street it is exactly, but there was a payphone there. I said, officer, I got a call to get a ride. Can I go over there and make a call while you're writing the ticket? He said, yeah, no problem. You get has my stuff, right? And I have my car, everything. And so I walk over there with the bag, right? And I call one of my friends who was involved with this kind of stuff too. And like, hey, Kay, I need you to, come pick me up right now. I pulled over, blah, blah, near, B's house, blah, blah, blah. And I left the bag over by the phone when I walked back over. And so that there'd be like no chance he'd want to look through it,
Right.
And then, they towed the car and stuff. Now, unbeknownst to me, the FBI was already surveilling all these guys. So, the FBI probably was watching that traffic stop as it was happening. And so by then, though, when you're doing interstate stuff, you can get searched by state troopers and all these other, anywhere. If you're on a bus, like Amtrak or on Greyhound, cops in other states, they will walk onto those buses and tell everybody to do a ticket check. That's not unconstitutional. So I already had been through situations where I had been carrying a good amount of felony level stuff. Some of those states, I could have got 25 to life for, just amounts that I had,
so you've lucked out a lot.
Yeah. So I was already kind of used to having to keep my cool with law enforcement officers asking me questions, like basic stuff, right? Oh, yeah, no problem, officer.
The more agreeable you are, the less you're going to get.
Yeah, I was already used to it, so that wasn't as difficult as it would be for others.
Yeah.
And anyhow, so needless to say that because I didn't get popped with that, that's probably one of the major reasons why I wasn't in that case. Because again, one of the guys who became a major informant for them when he got arrested was there, right?
Where can we watch your stuff? Where are the channels?
Mob True Crime and Mob and Organized Crime TV on YouTube.
And what's your Instagram?
Same thing. Mob True Crime is going to be all my social media for
X. And what's good about that is you do talk about when something is coming out. You do little clips.
Yeah, absolutely. And we interview people. You know, we talk a little bit about our stories, but we have people on. Oscar is probably going to be coming on. They're from the same case. You know, shout out to you, Oscar. Good job. You're doing great lately, by the way. We're all business owners now too. You know, he does real estate investment.
All legit business owners.
Yeah, all the same skills that was good for this.
I mean, it's
applicable in the real world. I'm in contracting and stuff, and an ex-mobster who's doing construction. You don't say, right?
Oh my God! People can DM you if they want to be on the show, right?
Absolutely.
But you better have an amazing story to top that. But you better have a great story to come on.
We don't have a competition. It's okay, but it's better be something that's good and at least semi-verifiable.
I mean, you interviewed the Gaudis and stuff. So.
Yeah, well, like Gene Borello's one that you're aware of, and we've different guys from New York that have some pretty crazy New York mobster stories. We've had I've had people that were that guys that have been lawyers for some of these guys. Also I've had ex-FBI agents hit me up on LinkedIn, say, hey, I'll come on to the show. We looked at your background. You were on our little list there, buddy. And you got lucky. You got lucky compared to some of the others. But. I'm Irish. I get the luck of the Irish.
Well, we're glad that you're out and doing your thing and that you're giving us great entertainment.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do other stories too. When El Mencho got busted. He didn't get busted. He got handled a different way by a couple months ago. I noticed the weaponry that his guys had came from a nation in the Middle East who's a best friend of America, supposedly. And so I did a story about how those guys are. And, I've talked about the Armenian groups, Russian guys, there's a few different Albanians.
And you guys can watch this at any time because they're all still there. It's on YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd love to interview anybody that's been involved with stuff. And I really like the people, though, that are able to say that they've overcome that.
Most of the people you interview kind of...
Yeah. And especially people doing positive things, And a lot of
people have.
Right. So one of the guys that I went to Fresno State with was Chris Herron, from, very well known in this area, actually all around.
Right.
I had him on a few years ago, and, back in the day, we're the same age. I'd run into him at like fraternity house parties and stuff, and, we did dumb things. But it was good to see all the crazy stuff he was involved with. He's now doing these extremely positive things, right? Outreach to the youth and
we can find that on the YouTube channel.
Absolutely. Okay. And so I like people. All the different stories, but I really like the people who can say that they're doing positive things now.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. You need to come on more. I really need to have you on more often because it never gets old. I mean, your stories are always amazing. So Thank you so much for coming today. And everyone's got to watch. And I am subscribed to one of them. I don't know if I'm subscribed to both of them.
Yeah, I'll send you the link to that one. I just made 2 channels to.
I think the first one that you've had for years, I've been subscribed to that, and I do see it pop up on. Because I get notifications. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much. And go and read this book, guys.
Michael McCallie is the name he uses, Mike McAllister. But look at into his book. You can find it on Amazon. Great book. And, I'll be doing one myself. Gene has a book, Born in the Life, as it's called. That's what mobsters they call what they do the life. I have other friends that are involved that have done great things and have written some really, really entertaining books too. And, I'm all about the positivity now, though. So
all about the positivity. Thank you so much for coming on my show.
Thank you so much,
today.
my dear. It's a pleasure to see you again. And, of course, we'll be back here, anytime you'd like.
Thanks for coming on the show again.
Always happy to be here.
So, what have you been up to since the last time we talked?
Trying to not go crazy with all of these changes in politics. This is the crazy season. We're just about up to an election. Within a day or two, people will have their ballots. I am more excited about this election than I have been in years, because I think that people are ready for a change. I don't know that they're necessarily ready for like hardcore conservatism, but so many things are not working. Governor Newsom's constantly talking about, well, we're the largest economy. Then how come we have the biggest gap between rich and poor in this, they claim, socialist state?
And then everybody moving. I mean, that's just staggering.
Well, he is doing a real favor for the U-Haul.
Right?
Because they're making real money.
That's a business to get into. There's a business for everyone.
So our super rich are moving out, but even without them moving out, we had this big gap between rich and poor. We have the highest unemployment. He talks about how we are college education is doing great. Well, I think it's doing okay. But if we look at secondary, so kindergarten through 12th grade, we're not doing well. We're somewhere around 47th. If a kid graduates school and has less than a 4th grade reading level, and that frequently happens right here in the district we're sitting in right now,
right,
the most likely place they're going to end up is on welfare or in jail. That's just sad. We need better than that. And so I'm hoping that the message gets out that, hey, we've got to look at this differently. We have some opportunities to change some things. And there's some candidates I'm excited about. Locally, for District 3, we're sitting in District 3, Fresno. There are 2 people I really like. Since Angie Brown did not make the ballot, personal friend, darn it, Angie, there are 2 people I really like. I like Charles Montoya.
Okay.
But he doesn't have the name recognition. I don't know if he can pull it off, but good guy. I like him. Another person that I kind of see as a hero has name recognition. She's a counselor for the Marjorie Mason Center. She helped found Breaking the Chains, which is a organization for getting mostly women, but not entirely.
Great organization. We've had them on here.
Yeah, so getting them out of human trafficking. She's decided and completely lost her mind, and she is running for city council right here in this district. She has name recognition. She's a woman that went through real tragedy, took that tragedy and turned it into something positive. This isn't just your everyday person. This is the kind of person we should be looking up to like a hero. I will have her on my show soon. I believe she's scheduled for the 19th of May.
Nice.
So I'm hoping that at least we'll make it through the primary. I don't know that Juan Arambula with his name recognition can be beat, but I don't think his woke policies are going to help Fresno. I don't like the fact that when a person sees race first and always, from my perspective, does that make them a racist?
I agree with that. And
okay, that doesn't mean they're necessarily horrible, but it still makes them...
It is like it definitely. It's a form of racism.
Right, if you see it first and always, and that could happen no matter what your skin color. Well, I think Juan Arambula's somebody that sees race first and always. Everything is viewed through that prism. So I don't want somebody there. I want somebody that, when I meet them, I have a chance to prove my character, so that I am judged on the content of my character, not the color of my skin.
Right.
So we'll see what happens with that race, but I'm hopeful. If we were to look at the county, things are shifting. So right here in Fresno County, Nathan Magsig is, I'll be shocked if he is not moving up to state senator, because it is a very, very, very red district, and he is the only Republican running. He has name recognition, and he has money. He has so much money that he is helping candidates that are not in his district. There's a dirty little thing about California politics that I don't love, and national politics. If you raise money and you don't need it, you can shuffle it to a different candidate. Now, that seems wrong to me, because if I gave my money to a candidate, it's because I believe in that candidate.
And you don't always agree with who they're shuffling into. That's a problem. It's like, you do want to have power over where your money goes. That's human nature.
Right.
So, yeah, I understand.
So, we'll have a shift in Board of Supervisors. We've also got Brian Pacheco, the most fiscally conservative member on the Board of Supervisors, giving that up and running for State Assembly. I don't know who's going to fill his position. It is not clear to me. Maybe Mike Carpasi could win. Maybe there's a woman with the same last name as Brian Pacheco. I think she's out of Kerman. I don't know what's going to happen, but shifts are going to happen in the county. In my own little Clovis, where I'm happy I work and live, we've got 2 council members running for the same supervisor position, Diane Pierce and Vong Manatua. I consider both of them friends. If I have to come down to it, though, Vong, you're going to lose. And I think they're both good people. Diane actually committed. She said, I am not running again. I am giving up my position on the Clovis City Council to run for this.
It is hard, though, when you have 2 people running against each other, which happened quite a bit in this race, I must say, for me. So,
yeah. Well, we'll work our way up to governor, because I'm a little disappointed there. I think our personal both favorite candidate is probably not going to happen.
Right. No. What else locally is something we should zone in on?
There are 2 different measures. I'm not sure the second one has made the ballot, but they're the substitute for Measure C. Measure C is about our roads. And if it was just about our roads and our roads got fixed, spending the money isn't horrible to me.
Right.
The problem is both of these measures, there's some problems with local control. Both of them, a lot of money goes to transportation. Well, our roads are a mess. Once the roads are in not bad shape.
There's a lot of people on the fence about, Measure C.
If our roads are in good shape, if I don't have to drive over potholes all the time, then let's talk about these other things. The other.
No, I get that, yeah.
Measure C, or the new Better Roads, Better Future, and what is the other one? Doesn't matter. Whichever one gets more votes is the one that's going to win. If they both don't pass, they both don't pass, and Measure C goes away for a while. But there are too many years. I believe that any tax increase should have a time limit. I love that, but I think this is too many years, 30 years. I believe that any tax measure should be able to be repealed if the people really want it. And I believe that we should have local control. So the city of Clovis, guess what? Their roads are in better shape because they spend a lot of their funds on roads. So if they want to put it with bike paths, okay, but what if the city of Fresno decided they needed more of those giant empty buses? Because they use the big buses. And every time I look at one, I make a point of trying to count how many people. If I'm at a stoplight, I count every bus that goes by. And I'm lucky if there's 10. The capacity is close to 50 people. Lucky if there's 10. It's not uncommon to see 1 or 2. How is that good money for, good value for our dollar?
I think we're all about fulfilling the needs of people, but then now it's like, well, what are the needs?
Mm-hmm. So we've got a world where we've got Uber and we've got other options. We've got motorized bikes now. They're forcing bike lanes on us from the state level. The reason why they're putting in bike lanes everywhere, they'll tell you because bikers want it. And I don't mean the ones that have the, with the leather jackets. Yes, they do want it, but they represent a pretty small percentage of the population. Bike lanes are typically empty. But if local communities don't create bike lanes, the state is going to impose a fee that's going to go on every house that's built. So the cost of living is going up because of a state mandate. Where this leaves us with the equivalent of Measure C, I don't know what's going to happen. I know that I am very hesitant to vote yes on any of them because what I want is fix the roads and then we'll talk about the other stuff.
Yeah, and that's a very fair statement. It does seem a lot of people are not super happy about the different. The people are kind of like, yeah, that's a good idea, but so I hear the same sentiments kind of across the board on that one. What you were saying about jobs, it's really interesting. I want to kind of go back to that a little bit about if we're not fixing your education system. I mean, you're either going to end up in prison or on welfare. And
or bouncing between the two.
Right now, and this is a big thing that I'm tackling and seeing, and when I interview like Gen Z and just people all across the board, it's really hard to get jobs, especially like in your field. And we're talking about like very educated, really smart people. It's really hard to get just a job, just to get a nice, good paying job where you could just be a single person paying rent
and maybe buy a car someday.
Yeah, to where you can save up for, a home, have a decent car with like everything. It's just so hard right now that I'm like really, when you say like those are the two choices, it's like we're almost getting at a point where just normal people like me and you are struggling with like, those about like, maybe getting on welfare, getting food stamps and stuff. And I'm seeing a lot of that happening. So I'm very concerned.
Well, one of the things that's really easy, that would lower the cost of everything in California, is if we did not import our oil, mostly from the Middle East. Do you realize that the majority of oil that we burn, because we burn millions of gallons a day in California, it comes from the Middle East, and it's all because of we can't have that dirty oil here. It creates good jobs. We do a better job of stewarding the environment, taking care of the environment. We get the oil out cleaner, we process it cleaner. But the reason they're able to say that they're saving carbon credits is because it can be shipped all the way from the Middle East, halfway across the world, to where it's within 12 miles of our ports. None of that carbon counts. None of the production, none of it counts. So Gavin Newsom can say, oh yeah, well, I'm against global warming and I'm against carbon. Yet we could produce it here. If we produced it here, we would not only create good paying jobs, but we would lower the cost of everything, because we would not be paying to have it sent across the world. So if energy was lower, everything's lower. When energy goes up, your transportation costs go up. Everything almost has at least some transportation. If you're not picking it in your backyard and it's just the cost to walk
very true.
There's cost there. So if we were to lower energy cost of living would shift. That's a real simple one, but it seems to be a hard one in California because they're so unwilling to do anything but clean energy. I don't object to clean energy. I want a clean environment. I just don't want to do it at the cost of us cutting off our nose to spite our face.
Yeah, very good point.
Did you know, and this is a typical California insanity, that hydroelectric is not counted towards clean energy in California? They mandated that a certain amount of all our energy has to come from clean sources, and then they defined those sources as not nuclear, not hydroelectric, not anything that has to do with carbon, which leaves sun, wind, and there's a tiny bit of work being done with harvesting the power of the tides. All expensive, all inefficient options. Now, if you go to South America and they put in a hydroelectric dam, they consider that clean energy. What happened here in California? I'd say what happened is we've lost common sense.
You bring up a really good point. So, all the candidates, where do you think, and it's so hard because it's like we're talking about a local level and a state level, where do you think we are going to come with some of these topics we're tackling right now?
I think it's the best opportunity we've had to actually have something different than
different. Something's better than nothing, right?
Right, than having the 16 years of one-party rule.
Are you mean insanity?
Yeah. I'm hoping that something different will happen. If Republicans were to show up at the same level they did during the presidential year, during 2024, for Trump, just the same level. If we got that number of people, do you know that we would win the majority of races in California? Because it's typically even though there's independents, and they represent basically a third, and slightly larger group than the Republicans. The Democrats making up the balance, the Republicans making slightly less than a third. About between 5 and 10 points, meaning the Republicans typically win about 40% of the vote. The Democrats typically win about 50%. Here in the Valley, it's much closer than that. In some cases, it's the Republicans that are winning. If we just showed up. I don't know how to get people to show up, but this year has a couple things that are special. Not only we have a governor's race, and people have had enough of Newsom. And if you just go look on Twitter, put up Gavin Newsom and then see what people have to say.
Does anybody like Gavin Newsom? I'm really like...
people from out of state seem to support him.
Okay, so that's why there might be a presidential run. I'm always trying to figure that out. I'm like, I don't even know Democrats that are happy that are here. They're here in local or California, yeah.
So tyranny is what he seems to exemplify, and is great at BSing his way through anything. He hasn't for years. The last hard interview I saw him in was with Adam Carolla. And Adam, who was a really nice guy and funny, steamrolled him. Gavin was a gibbering fool, and it was so much fun to watch. And now he very carefully picks, but he's also gotten better at just BSing his way through.
Right.
Like he'll start talking about, well, we're number one in this, we're number one in this. How does that translate to the everyday person and the affordability? How do you get around the fact that more people, I'm not talking about illegals, but tax-paying citizens are moving out of state because they can't provide the living they want for their family. They can't afford a home, or they're like, the school districts are insane. I can't raise my kids here. Well, California can be fixed because at its core, we've got great people, great resources, geographically, the best weather, places that are beautiful. I mean, next level wonders of the world. Go to Yosemite.
Right.
Go to a whole bunch of places on the California coast. It's next level great. We also have this wonderful farmland that feeds the world. Certainly feeds our nation, but also feeds the world. And outside of, I think it's Denmark, but one of the Norwegian nations, we produce more per acre than basically anywhere else in the world. Now they're using hydroponic farming. It's super labor intensive. It's super expensive to build the greenhouses. We're just doing it by growing something right out in the field and being the most productive in the world. Yet they've made it so difficult to get water. They've made it so difficult to use pesticides. You've got CEQA that makes you fight over water in unreasonable ways. We've got a storage facility that never got built. Got paid for.
It's crazy.
Never got built. Well, these are not hard problems. If it's already paid for, and they already got the place, and they already got the plan,
well, what's the problem?
We just have to do it so that we have water. We would also have a lot more water if we would simply build some sewage treatment facilities for towns like Stockton. Towns that are putting partially treated sewage water, West Sacramento I believe is another one, into the Delta, which then pollutes the Delta, and they are like, well, it has to be a certain purity clean, so when it rains, they flush the Delta rather than saving that water.
Right.
These are not hard things to figure out. Yet it doesn't seem to happen. So people should be fed up. But we've got some things that drive people to the polls. Two that I'm excited about. The one I'm less excited about, that is everybody that's got a piece of property, you pay property tax. And one of the reasons you can afford to keep that piece of property in California is because of Prop 13. And we've got a Prop 13 measure to protect you. They're trying to change it so that they can raise your property tax basically at will, with only a 51% or 50 plus 1 vote. And I want it to be harder than that. I want people to be invested. I would like a 2/3 vote. Well, this is going to force a 2/3 before they can change Prop 13.
So the few people that can't afford property might not be able to afford it for much longer, basically.
Well, yes, if your taxes went crazy.
That's what I'm saying. It's getting, what do you think the stakes are already against you? It's just getting more and more like.
Mm-hmm. Well, what do you do in LA? I mean, houses are expensive here, but a house that's $500,000 here, which is a fairly expensive house here, in LA is $1 million or $2 million, depending on where.
So the tax on that?
And the tax on that's crazy. I have friends that are paying 20, 30 grand just in property tax. I could never consider opening a home. So, if you care about what those costs are and you want to keep them low, you need to come to the polls and you need to vote in this protection for Prop 13.
Okay.
The other thing that really excites me, and there's been a lot of talk about this at a national level, of voter ID. Well, California's got a ballot initiative put out by Reform California. Carl DeMaio, he's kind of the person who spearheaded this, but local guys like David Tonkipa drove all over the state. He's a local Fresno assemblyman. And it's fighting for voter ID. So I don't know that Trump's going to be able to do anything about this one because there doesn't seem to be the will. But if we take polls, about 75% of Democrats believe we should have voter ID, that it's just insane that we don't. I'm not talking about the politicians, I'm talking about the everyday people. It's slightly higher, it's closer to 80 with independents.
So you think that might actually change this season?
Yes, and then the third one is Republicans are at about 85%. I don't know what's wrong with 15% of the Republicans, but voter ID seems like a good idea. This does not fix all our voter problems, but we've got a kind of, think of it as we're trying to control problems and all you've got is a net. But what you're trying to catch is water. So it's not very effective at all.
Not at all.
So in that situation, it's really easy because they can look online. I can go to my county register of voters and see who's already voted. I can look it up myself. I could pull out my phone and do that right now. Mm-hmm. It'd take me a few minutes to figure out exactly where it is because it's been a little while since I've done this. So they know also, do you regularly vote? Do you only vote in presidential years? So all they have to do if they don't have voter ID is show up. Know your address. Have a signature that is marginally similar because the signature identification is a joke. I know our county register of voter, James Coos, pretty well. Been to a whole bunch of his stuff. Have been down to the processing center several times. Know people that have been way more than me.
I know people that forge signatures, just saying.
Well, again, all it has to do is be slightly similar. Like, if they got the S on Sparkle right, and the rest of it looked wrong, they're looking for 3 points in common. So if they got the S completely right, that would be enough if say you hadn't got around to voting till the last minute.
Yeah.
There's no check and balance. You can't go anywhere and do much of anything without ID. I can't walk on a school. As I'm not a parent, but I can't walk onto a school unless I have permission and I have to show ID.
Right.
If I want to rent a car.
Buy a drink.
Buy a drink. Or frankly, if I go to the bank and they know me by name, and yet I still have to pull out my ID if it's over a certain amount.
Right.
And I go to one of my banks is a really small bank. Every teller knows me by name and knows my business name, and yet they still look at ID.
Wow.
This is what our society does. Well, with this ballot ID initiative, it does a couple things. It requires by state ballot initiative, so it becomes law, that each register of voter, there is one person in charge of elections in every county in California. There's 58. Each one of those is responsible. It's not always the register of voters. Sometimes it's the county clerk because not every county is exactly the same. Real small counties might combine the two positions, meaning small population counties. There are counties that have less population. There's counties that have like 100,000 people in the entire area in California, as populous as parts of California are. So it requires them to clean the voter rolls. They claim they do I'd say we have mixed results on that. It will require that people prove they're citizens. And there are multiple ways to do that, but then that's going to be on record that that's the piece of ID you used to prove you're a citizen. And then when you show up to vote, you're going to be using that same piece of ID. Now, when I've asked friends of mine, because the Democrats love to say, well, you know, some of these disadvantaged people, they can't get an ID. Well, when I've asked friends that are Hispanic, they laugh at me. I'm like, well, come on. Well, they're all like, of course I have an ID. When I've asked friends of mine that are black, they say the same thing. Are you kidding me? Of course I have an ID. When I've asked homeless people, only once have they said, I don't have an ID. Now, could there be some small disadvantaged community that doesn't have an ID? There could. Real simple way around that. What if the government was willing to pay for those small numbers of IDs? That'd take care of that. But we need ID to protect what I consider to be, voting is like an aspect of my First Amendment rights, to have my voice heard. Mm-hmm. And if somebody else can vote but not be a citizen, or have moved out of the area and somebody's illegally using it, or frankly, they've found places that have had, Nick Shirley recently looked into a place, nobody was there, and there were, I believe it was 80 people registered to vote at this house and nobody was there.
Interesting.
Or last election, we had a guy that was living out of his car in Sacramento, but somehow he had over 40 ballots in the back of his car.
Interesting, wow.
You'd think he's going to sell those, right?
It's pretty impressive.
Well, at least he's probably going to get out of homelessness. Maybe nefariously, but he's going to get out of it. So, with those two things, those should drive people to the polls. If you care. If you're not just going to turn tail and run. And I believe that we deserve better.
Right.
We should demand better. And we can get better, but you have to show up and make a difference, folks.
And there is a lot of division within the parties, which is, you know. Yes,
it is kind of sad. And I did not make this last Republican convention, but I went to the previous two.
Yeah.
An S show. I don't know if I can use that word on your show. So
yes.
It's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of great people, and then you get into the room where you vote on things, and the will of the people's not heard. Like if a committee has a recommendation on something that's at the Republican convention, and the body, the delegates, decide to vote against it, they can't win with 51%. They have to go against the recommendations of the committee. It has to be 2/3. What kind of scam is that? So the Republicans are flawed too.
That's why there's no governor endorsement this year.
Yes. Well, I was pleased to see that at least Leo got on that stage. He got enough support that he got on the stage. Didn't go anywhere, but we need people like Leo Zaki that care about common sense solutions more than policy, or more than politics. And I think that's why he resonates with young people, that he can absolutely talk about politics, but more importantly, he's talking about everyday kitchen table issues and how he can make a difference. So if Leo doesn't start showing up in the poll, actually I've been saying this for a long time. Leo, I think what you need to do, love you, man, support you, but I think you need to pick a candidate and try to help them. And I don't think he's going to do that, but and I'm sad to say that, because I really wanted his campaign to explode, but I think he's out of time.
No, I understand. There's, a lot of issues, but but I'm also like you. There's a lot of division within the two front runners.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's going to be interesting.
There's definitely some shade thrown. What I find is there's not quite as many Bianco supporters, but they're more hardcore. There are more Hilton supporters. Hilton is more nuanced. He can explain policy much better than Bianco. But Bianco gets to the heart of the matter and speaks in a a tougher manner, something that appeals to people. I like some things about both of them. I don't like some things about both of them.
I can only imagine what those are.
Well, I like...
Yeah, the BLM Bianco, I think we're all like...
Well, and I think he's full of it on that. to say, oh, I was praying. If he just said, yes, I kneeled, just because I believed it was what needed to happen to make them go away peacefully, and if he'd stopped there and hadn't done this whole it's praying, I'd be like, okay.
We all make mistakes, yeah.
Okay, then not the end of the world. You were in the moment, I wasn't in the moment, but I feel like he's consistently BS'd people on that. I was this close to him as he was being interviewed at convention by a friend of mine, and I saw his body language, and I don't believe him.
Right.
But that isn't enough that I wouldn't vote for him, because he's a politician first. Both of them are. I will get to Hilton. One of the other things that I don't really like about Bianco is he knew about the voter inequity in his county, where there's like a 45,000 difference in vote between what the machines are saying and what the ballots are saying. I hope that all gets resolved. It's in courts right now. But he could have grabbed that 2 years ago. He knew about it 2 years ago. He waited till he was well into his governor run before he grabbed those ballots. Come on, man.
Right.
I'm not saying it was the wrong thing. It's the right thing. But why did you wait a year and a half to do it? Because that's not okay. Do the right thing. You are the chief executive officer within that county.
Right.
That is what the sheriff is. They're part of the executive branch, and they're the number one person in each county. So there's 58 of them in California. You had the authority to do this, and you waited until it was politically expedient.
That is not cool.
No, that's not cool. Some criticisms about... Oh, I got one more with Bianco, then I'll stop. Then I'll do some Hilton. I really like Sheriff Mack. He's a constitutional, hardcore sheriff, and he leads a group of constitutional sheriffs around the nation. And he's written a really great book. And he went on, I can't remember whose show, but he talked for several minutes. He's like, I'm a constitutional sheriff. Bianco says that he's part of my group, yet I've never seen him at a meeting, and I founded it, and I've never missed a meeting.
Oh my goodness.
Just pointing out, Bianco's not all bad. He speaks well. I think he's frankly stronger on social issues than Hilton. He's definitely smart. And he's a no-nonsense guy. And I do believe he would be fairly good on law and order. And the executive, meaning the governor, that's one of the things that they largely help with.
We are out of time, Eric.
I can't even get to the other part.
You can't even get to it. So I guess everyone's stuck with Hilton because you couldn't.
Well, Hilton's not all bad. He has a plan.
You'll have to say that on your show.
Okay.
Now you guys have to watch Eric.
He has
Rollins.
a plan, but... All right, I'll let you wrap it up.
Okay, where do we watch your show?
You can find me on Facebook under the Constitutionalist Podcast. You can find me on X, the Constitutionalist Podcast. You can find me on Rumble, the Constitutionalist Podcast. You can find me on YouTube, the Constitutionalist Podcast. And I do some shorts, and because Instagram's not set up for long form, I do shorts on Instagram.
And I like watching it, and I think you're great. I love, we interview a lot of the same people, and there are always going to be different questions with different people, and I love it. So I love watching you.
Well, I didn't realize I was running at the mouth that long, so sorry.
Oh, it's okay. But then they'll have to watch your show to feel your take on Hilton. Or everyone just could vote for...
and there are some criticisms, some legitimate criticisms of Hilton.
Or people could just vote for Hilton over Bianco. I do
prefer Hilton, but you know, I got to be fair on this. If Bianco finds a way to pull ahead decisively in the polls, I'm voting for the Republican that is decisively ahead.
I get what you're saying.
Because we would be better off than any of them. I think both of them are better than the best Democrat, which is Matt Mann.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Everybody follow Eric Rollins.
Felt right in the moment, felt right in the summertime. It felt right drinking cherry wine with you. Just wanted to own it, Just wanted to take the time, learn all the things that I could about you. Now it's such a mess here. Oh, we are just stressed here. Used to be so easy with you. Now I must confess here. Oh, I must confess, dear. Don't think I'm in love with you. Winter is coming and I don't know what to do. And there's no more use in running, no more running to you. And I don't want your loving, I don't wanna be just friends, knowing all this time we were playing pretend.
It's a mystery.